On the morning of October 20th, 2014, authorities were called to a residence in the Ferguson Mobile Home Park, located off Lehman Trestle Road in Kieseltown, Rockingham County, Virginia. What began as a standard response to a concerned call quickly turned into a scene of active investigation. Inside one of the trailers, the body of a man was discovered. It was immediately evident that this was no ordinary death. The man had died as a result of crime. The deceased was identified as 50-year-old Richard Wayne Charlton, known to most as Ricky. The discovery of his body inside his home came as a profound shock to the community. The Ferguson Mobile Home Park, home to roughly 30 trailers, was known for being a quiet and close-knit neighborhood. Residents routinely looked out for one another. Suspicious activity was rare, and when something seemed wrong, people spoke up. For Ricky to be found dead under criminal circumstances was beyond anything the residents had experienced before. Law enforcement officials secured the area and began processing the scene. Although no specific details about the cause of death were released to public, authorities stated clearly that foul play was involved. The nature of the scene pointed conclusively to a homicide. As the news of the murder spread to the mobile home park and beyond, a wave of fear and disbelief followed. Many had known Ricky personally. For years, he had lived among them as a neighbor, a familiar and friendly face. The day quickly turned from routine to grim as investigators remained on site, interviewing neighbors and collecting any visible evidence. The sense of safety that once defined the neighborhood was instantly shaken. In a community where people felt they could leave their doors unlocked, the presence of a crime scene and a murder investigation marked a turning point. What had happened inside Ricky's home, and who could be responsible, were now the central questions, ones that would haunt the community and puzzle investigators for years to come. The search for answers had begun. Richard Wayne Charlton, known to those around him simply as Ricky, was a man whose life reflected hard work, consistency, and quiet kindness. At 50 years old, Ricky was well established in his career as a manager and driver for Cash Septic Service in Harrisonburg. His daily route took him through local communities in a large truck humorously labeled Cash's Big Pooper Scooper, a nickname that often drew smiles and lightened the tone of a difficult job. To Ricky, it was just another day doing what needed to be done, dependable and without complaint. Ricky's personal interests gave deeper insight into the man behind the job. He was a devoted fan of Lynyrd Skynyrd, often listening to their classic Southern rock tunes that echoed his laid-back nature. Faith also played a role in his life. He attended the Sunrise Church of the Brethren, where he was recognized as a consistent and familiar presence. But perhaps most notable was his affection for animals, especially cats. Ricky shared his home with several feline companions, each one cared for with love and attention. His bond with his cats was well known in the neighborhood. The community Ricky lived in, the Ferguson Mobile Home Park, was tight-knit, where neighbors looked after one another and where familiarity was the norm. In such an environment, Ricky was not just another resident. He was someone who was noticed, spoken to, and appreciated. He contributed to the rhythm of daily life in a neighborhood where people valued connection. The news of Ricky's murder sent ripples of sorrow and disbelief through the area. For those who knew him, the loss was personal. Ricky was remembered not for grand gestures, but for the quiet strength of his work ethic, his gentle demeanor, and the way he made people feel seen and remembered. His absence was deeply felt. Investigators believe that the murder of Richard Ricky Wayne Charlton occurred sometime between late Sunday evening and the early hours of Monday morning, spanning October 19th to 20th, 2014. Although the precise moment of the crime has never been publicly confirmed, this narrow time frame became a central focus for law enforcement during the initial stages of the investigation. It marked a critical window during which something terrible happened inside Ricky's home, something that turned an ordinary evening into a tragic crime scene. The quiet of Sunday night gave way to a dark event that went undetected in a community where unusual activity typically did not go unnoticed. Authorities urged residents of Ferguson Mobile Home Park to recall even the smallest details from those hours: unfamiliar vehicles, odd noises, or anything out of place. In a neighborhood where neighbors paid attention, any inconsistency could prove vital. Despite the plea for awareness, very little information surfaced that could publicly clarify what occurred during those hours. Authorities made it clear that they believed someone, perhaps even multiple people, held crucial knowledge about the crime. They strongly suspected that someone within or connected to the community had chosen silence over disclosure. This belief fueled ongoing frustration, not only among detectives, but also among those who had cared about Ricky. The lack of resolution during this period added layers of uncertainty and suspicion. As the hours of that night remained shrouded in unanswered questions, the case grew colder. Still, the timeline between Sunday night and Monday morning remains at the heart of the investigation, marking the boundary between the last known moments of Ricky's life and the start of a mystery that continues to demand answers. Following the discovery of Ricky Charlton's body on October 20th, 2014, law enforcement immediately launched a homicide investigation. Rockingham County authorities arrived at the scene and began their work, securing the trailer and interviewing neighbors. But from the start, the case presented serious challenges. While the death was clearly criminal in nature, investigators provided the public with very few specific details, keeping most findings closely guarded. The lack of transparency became one of the defining characteristics of the investigation. In the days and weeks that followed, police issued multiple public appeals for information. They emphasized the importance of community cooperation, urging anyone who might have seen or heard something suspicious between late Sunday night and early Monday morning to come forward. A $10,000 reward was announced, offered to anyone who could provide a tip leading to the resolution of the case. Despite these efforts, no significant breakthroughs were made public. Authorities stated plainly that they believed someone, perhaps more than one person, was withholding information. There must be people walking around with a secret, they said. It was a pointed message aimed directly at the community. Frustration soon began to build, both within the public and among Ricky's loved ones. The investigation appeared to stall, and there were no announcements of suspects or leads. Residents who had once felt safe in their homes now carried unease and questions that remained unanswered. The absence of clear updates gave rise to speculation and concern. Still, the sheriff's office remained committed. They repeatedly promised the public that the search for Ricky's killer was not over. Every tip would be followed, no matter how small. In their public statements, investigators reaffirmed their intention to continue the work, however long it might take. They emphasized that the case was still open, and they had not given up. Years have passed, but the case remains unsolved. The silence surrounding the investigation mirrors the silence of those who may know more than they have revealed. Yet behind that silence, the hope for justice still lingers, fueled by every new appeal and every new call for truth. In the aftermath of Ricky Charlton's murder, the pain extended far beyond the boundaries of a crime scene. For his mother, the loss was devastating and permanent. In a heartfelt and emotional public letter, she reached out directly to the community, pleading for anyone with information to step forward. Her message was not filled with anger, but with sorrow and desperation, an honest reflection of mothers searching for justice in the face of unbearable grief. "I am begging anyone with information on my son's murder to come forward," she wrote. These words, simple and direct, carried the weight of profound loss. Ricky was not only her son, but a man deeply loved by his family and respected by the people who knew him. She described how the community had appreciated his hard work and kindness, painting a picture of a man whose presence had left a lasting impact. Her letter continued, "I am lost without him." In that single sentence, the pain of a mother's mourning became unavoidably real. Her plea was more than a request. It was a call to conscience. To those who might have witnessed something, heard a rumor, or held back a detail, her words asked them to do what was right. The letter brought a human face to the cold fact of the case and reminded the public that behind every unsolved crime is a family left waiting for answers. Law enforcement echoed her sentiment, reaffirming that they would never stop looking for Ricky's killer. The police emphasized their commitment to following every lead, no matter how small. Together, the mother's emotional appeal and continued efforts of investigators formed a unified voice, one of sorrow, persistence, and hope. It remains a plea that still echoes, waiting for someone to finally break the silence. Years have passed since the murder of Richard "Ricky" Wayne Charlton, but the case remains open. Despite early efforts, multiple public appeals, and the promise of reward, no arrests have been made. No suspects have ever been publicly identified. For investigators, the trail has grown cold, but not forgotten. The silence surrounding Ricky's death has lingered, stretching from the early hours of October 20th, 2014, into the present day. Law enforcement continues to believe that the key to solving this case lies not in physical evidence, but in human memory and conscience. Detectives still hold firm to the belief that someone, somewhere, knows something. It could be a person who was nearby that night, someone who heard a secondhand confession, or someone who saw something they were not meant to notice. Perhaps out of fear, confusion, or doubt that information has never been shared. To address this, renewed appeals have been issued. Authorities have created an anonymous platform for submitting tips. Anyone with information, no matter how small or uncertain, is urged to come forward. No contact details are required. A tip can be submitted completely anonymously and will be directed to the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office. The message is simple. Do not hold back. Even the smallest detail could make the difference. For Ricky's family, the community, and the investigators still working the case, there's a shared hope that one person will finally speak up. A voice long silent could bring closure to a crime that has left a lasting wound. The question remains, are you the one holding the missing piece? If you know something, anything, this is your chance to do what is right. Ricky Charlton's story is not finished. Justice is still waiting, and your voice could finally bring it home.